welcome back everybody to another two fantastic stories which I'm about to tell you. And again, I want to thank all of you who have subscribed to my channel. This next two episodes are actually based on a request. So Wingding writes, excellent story. Do you have any stories from central Alberta? Well, I'm not sure if these next two stories are from central Alberta, possibly one. However, I hope you enjoy this and thank you so much for commenting, Wingding. So guys, sit back and relax and let's dig in deep. All right, this next sighting takes place on June 17th, 2011. It was springtime, and the witness was bird watching in Waterton National Park, Alberta. I arrived at Waterton National Park from Medicine Hat on June 16th, June 2011, and had camped for the night at the Groenveld campsite that evening, the location of a previous Sasquatch sighting, I believe. This was my first trip to the area, and as I was keen to birdwatch, I was up ready at the first light on the 17th and headed towards Cameron Lake on a road which had just been opened due to excessive snow. This area had been recommended to me as it was a great place for varied thrush and stellar jays, two species I wanted to see. I've seen both species quickly in the Lake Car Park. I switched to look at a scree slope where I was told there was a chance of seeing a grizzly bear. Let me pause there for just 1 second. If you're not sure what a scree slope is, usually when you have like a cliff or a mountains and it has a sharp drop on one side, there's loose rocks or stones along the lower part of that slope, and so it makes it very difficult to walk on because you can slip on those loose rocks. So that's what a scree is. Anyways, let's continue. I was looking at the slope through my Swarovski ATM 80 scope and occasionally switching to the top of a local tree to watch a singing male varied thrush. The sighting was just after first light and the sun was still not in view. I had been listening to a varied thrush singing in the dark. As I was scanning this scree slope, I noticed movement in a tree line, and as I switched view, I noticed a large animal move out of the tree and onto the slope. The slope was to my left on the road leading up to the Lake Car Park, and I had pulled into a lay-bay to view. Initial thoughts were, good grizzly, that was quick. Before I describe what I saw then, I shall give you some background of myself. I was a complete skeptic when it came to the idea of an undiscovered bipedal ape wandering around North America, and I thought that the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot was a man in a gorilla suit, and the photo taken by Todd Standing et al. Were men dressed as Chewbacca. As a naturalist, I found it inconceivable that Bigfoot could exist and not been found, photographed, and perhaps collected for science. The mammal walked out of the tree line on two legs. Its movement was fluid and was most definitely not a bear walking. It was headed across the slope at a fast pace and appeared not to be concerned with the scree. At this point, I was in complete shock. I was looking at an animal which didn't exist. My view was partially blocked by a tree as it headed into the slopes, so I moved positions quickly and looked at the animal through my Swarovski EL 10 by 50 binoculars, leaving my scope where it was standing. I should have used a scope, I know, but the view was good and I was able to move whilst looking through my binoculars. It was my movement that probably alerted the creature to my presence, and it moved behind a large boulder, ducking down, as it did so and didn't reappear. It either remained where it was or was able to move off without me seeing it. As it walked, its arms were swinging, but not overly so. I was in shock and remained for at least another hour trying to see it leave, and talked myself into me seeing a grizzly and not what it actually was. My distance to the animal is open to interpretation. I seem to remember being only 300 or so meters away, but this may be more. Either way, I was in view of a creature but did not see it look directly at me. I left after an hour and headed into Waterton for breakfast. As I sat in a cafe, I was desperate to tell someone, but didn't do so. I have told no one since, apart from a brief outline of events as I introduced myself as a new member of NAWAC, an organization I have just joined. My family are unaware. All three are skeptics and thinks I'm barking mad, as I watched Bigfoot documentaries on TV and YouTube and devour every book available on the subject. I am now a true believer. I have spent hours talking myself out of this sighting, but have failed to do so. I know what I saw, and it wasn't a bear. I am keen to return to North America and help out on a Sasquatch wood ape expedition, and intend to do so after I retire in 2 years. This was another great story. I mean, I know I say the same thing every time, but they are all great stories. Let's go ahead and listen to story number 2. Okay, this next encounter takes place on September 10th, 1975. The witness was 18 years old and was near a location called Peace River. Okay, so this next story, the witness and her then boyfriend were on a hike returning back to the car because it was turning dark. Drove to 12-foot Davis gravesite picnic ground in Peace River with a friend. We walked on the hillside behind the graveside. No birds were chirping. Everything was silent. The hairs on my neck were standing up. I chose to go to the outside toilet facility. My friend moved back to the car. When I got about 2 feet from the washroom door, I saw a shadow move, and I heard heavy outgoing of breath, and there was a musky stench. The toilet facilities were about 8 to 9 feet high, of a pyramid shape. This thing was standing beside the toilet, and I estimate its height of at least 7 to 7.5 feet high. I felt eerie and decided to forget the washroom trip. I started to walk away towards the gravesite. My friend yelled at me to get back into the car, as he had been looking in my direction. I turned and looked behind me, and I felt immediate terror. This thing wasn't a bear. It was on its front arms and bum up in the air and pushing itself along in an ambling fashion, following behind me about 4 feet away, and appeared to be sniffing at me. It was light-haired, dark blondish color, looked not like a bear, had sparse hair on its body, more hair on the legs and arms, ape-like face, and a little hair on the face, more on the head. The hair looked extremely coarse, almost like a horse's mane in winter. I quickly ran to the car. We jumped in the car and sped away around the corner and down the hill. As we were speeding away, this thing rose up and tried to chase the car a short way. It was angry, standing straight, not like a bear, more like a human, and it was swinging its arms and screaming. We barely got away from it. It followed us down the hillside a short way. When I came home, I was so upset that I told my mother. She in turn passed this information on to someone and went up there the next day but didn't see anything. They found tufts of hair, but that was it. It's been 30 years and I still have the detail of what I saw stuck in my head, and I imagine I always will. A person does not survive that kind of terror without remembering it for the rest of your life. Oof. Again, I simply cannot imagine what you would be going through running away from a creature that, to me, probably, if it wanted to, could have caught this girl. But in any case, another amazing story. So that's going to bring an end to the stories for today. And I do want to thank everybody for coming out to my channel and listening to my encounter stories. Well, Wingding, I hope you enjoyed these two encounter stories from Alberta. And for all of you out there, if you would like to share your encounter stories in a safe environment, please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. And by the way, your stories does not have to originate from Ontario, and they can be as anonymous as you would like. Oh, and before I forget, please hit that like button and lend some support by subscribing to my channel. Bye for now, and see you all next time.